Today I want to talk to you about the three most common things I see in my office with my clients who are 40 and over in regards to their strength deficits. The main thing I tend to see is weak stabilizers. When I talk about stabilizers, I'm talking about things like the rotator cuff and the hip rotators, the things that help stabilize the joints. Now, even if you are going to the gym, you may notice that if you're not using free weights or even body weight exercises, but if you find yourself stuck on machines, you're really limiting the amount of stabilizer work you can get. That's largely because machines are on what we call a fixed axis. So say I sit down in a chest press machine, my back is fully supported, my core is fully supported, and so I'm really only working my primary pressing muscles, i.e. my pecs, triceps, things of that nature. While that's great for building muscle, it doesn't really do much for our stabilizers. One of the most common shoulder injuries I see are rotator cuff strains or tears, and more often than not is from people simply being in their car and trying to reach behind them into the back seat, and they tend to get a strain, oftentimes in the supraspinatus, but the other rotator muscles can be at risk as well. The next thing I tend to see is a real loss of postural endurance. So the reason that tends to happen is, again, we spend a lot of time seated at our desk, on our phones, on a computer. All of these things tend to create a shortening and tightening of the pec muscles, the bicep muscles, the upper abdominals, and even the back of the neck muscles. What this does is that really puts us in a slouched posture. And once we've kind of attained that posture, it makes it really hard for us to have nice posture, and it makes it almost impossible to stabilize all of our musculature in that flexed posture. The last thing I see a big loss of is grip strength. It's really for a couple of the reasons above. One, if you're not doing body weight or free weights, you're really not stimulating all your grip muscles. And again, a lot of us, spend so much time on our phones, on our computers, literally sitting around and not using our hands, that we tend to lose a lot of that strength. And if you look at a lot of the most recent studies, they show grip strength is a correlate for all-cause mortality and all health outcomes. That simply means these studies have found the stronger your grip, the longer you tend to live, and the better your health tends to be. So, now that we've talked about what some of the major strength deficits I tend to see in my gym, let's talk about how to fix it. One of the best ways to fix stabilizer and general strength deficits is isometrics, or sometimes people call them holds. So why are isometrics such a good measure of our systemic strength? One, they take out all the cheating, simply meaning when people tend to lift weights, especially again if they're on machines, you see a lot of momentum, right? Because you don't have to stabilize, so you're literally just pushing and pulling. And what that does, that allows us to skip part of the stabilizing factors of the muscle, and it can actually lead to weaker stabilizers due to the muscular imbalances. So say you don't want to do free weights, you don't want to do body weights, you really love the machines. Okay, maybe it's still not great for your stabilizers, but what you can do is you can slow down the movement, and you can add what we call an isometric hold. So let's just say we're back to our chest press machine, and normally we're just doing it as fast as we can. So now when you do that, what I want you to do is I want you to go out on a 4 count, 1, 2, 3, 4. I want you to come back halfway, 1, 2. We're gonna hold that for 4 to 6 seconds, and then we're gonna finish the rep. By doing that, we're not necessarily challenging our stabilizer muscles, but we are starting to build some isometric strength, or what we would consider true strength, or even muscular endurance. The next thing we want to look at when we talk about muscular endurance is our postural endurance. So it's that same thing we were just discussing. We spend so much of our time in these poor postures that all of our back muscles tend to get really weak. So it's kind of the same thing when people do, things like rows or even back extensions on a machine. We're still not working our stabilizers, and we're still not getting those isometric holds to build the true muscular endurance. Another great benefit of doing our isometrics is that it can start to build more joint integrity. For that, I really like to use what's called positional isometrics. So let's just take the example of a dumbbell side lateral lift, right? So say I've got a dumbbell in my hand and I'm lifting it. So what we can do if we go fast and we use momentum, yes, you're gonna build some strength. Yes, there's a lot of athletic components to that, but we're not building true strength and we're not building joint integrity. So what we can do is we can add some positional isometric holds. So let's take that same dumbbell and let's come up a quarter and we'll hold for 3 to 5 seconds. We'll come up, hold for 3 to 5 seconds. Come up, hold for 3 to 5, and we'll come down, same with control and with some isometric pauses. So it's that same concept we've already been talking about, is we're looking for ways to build joint integrity and true muscular strength. The last thing we want to talk about is our grip. So we mentioned earlier, grip strength is correlated with health outcomes for the positive and for all-cause mortality, simply meaning the stronger your grip, the better your life tends to be. And machines don't really get that done. But what does get it done? Free weights, body weight exercises. So we always need to make sure that we're incorporating some kind of grip strength in our programs. So now that we covered some of the features of strength loss after 40, some of the things that we want to do about it, primarily isometric holds and positional isometrics, I'd like to take you through my top 5 body weight isometric holds. With each of these exercises, just do what you can to start, whether it's 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever you can muster. Over time, for every exercise I'm about to show you, the minimum fitness standard, general fitness, is 2 minutes. Our athletic standards are 5 minutes. 2 minutes and 5 minutes may not sound like a whole lot, but holding a position for that long can really work the nervous system, and most importantly, it's going to build joint integrity and systemic strength. All right, let's check them out. Once you get started in these exercises, let's talk about quickly how you're going to progress them. Generally speaking, every 2 to 3 weeks, give or take, you want to add 10 to 20% onto your effort. Since we're doing these for time, it's a pretty easy concept to figure out. You're simply going to add 10 to 20% of your total time on to your previous best. Again, you should be able to improve roughly 10 to 20% every 2 to 3 weeks. Again, don't try to push too hard or too fast. We're talking about slowing down. Don't try to push too hard or too fast. Slow and steady wins the race, and that way we're more likely to build strength while we minimize our risk of injury. Look at it as a new habit, and we're just slowly building this habit to build our systemic strength and longevity. All right, our first exercise is the wall sit. For the wall sit, I'm going to bring my feet out in front of me comfortably, and then I'm going to make sure my butt, my back, and the back of my head is against the wall, as well as the back of my hands. From here, we've got 3 different options for our depth. We have what's considered the quarter squat, which is about 30 degrees of bending at the hips and knees. We have the half squat, which is about 60 degrees of knee and hip flexion. And then we have the full squat, which is 90 degrees at the hips and knees. Regardless of the position you choose, the posture remains the same and the goal remains the same. Our initial goal for general fitness standards is 2 minutes. Our goal for advanced or athletic fitness levels is 5 minutes. When you start, I would encourage you to start at a quarter squat. When you can master that for 2 minutes, then the half squat. When you master that for 2 minutes, then the full squat. Once you've mastered the full squat for 2 minutes, we can slowly work our way up to 5 minutes. When you add time on, generally speaking, you'll add 10 to 20% to your time every 2 to 3 weeks until you've reached 5 minutes. Be sure when you're done to come out nice and gentle as to not to put any strain into the knee by coming up explosively. Our next exercise is the prone plank. With the prone plank, we're looking to build muscular endurance in the anterior part of the core, into the posterior part of the core with the glutes, and in through our shoulder girdle. Initially, for a beginner, we're going to come down and we're going to make sure that the hand, elbow, and shoulder are all in line. I don't want you to bring your hands together. We want to make sure we're getting the most work out of our shoulders by keeping everything parallel. For a beginner,
you're going to come into that position, shoulder and elbow in line, and then you're just going to gently walk your knees back a little bit. You're going to tuck your chin and keep a neutral spine. This is beginner version. When you can do this for 2 minutes, then you can start the more advanced version where we come up off the knees. Same thing, I've got a neutral spine. So I'm not up and rounding, I'm squeezing my butt, neutral spine, tucking my chin. I'm pulling my belly button in towards my spine. I'm holding this position for 2 minutes. Once you can achieve it for 2 minutes, we slowly add 10 to 20% onto your time every 2 to 3 weeks until you can hold it for the full 5 minutes.
Exercise 3 is the side plank. The side plank is going to build endurance into our rotator cuffs and into all of our lateral muscles, our obliques, our hip adductors, all those pieces. For the beginner, we're going to come down, and same as always, I want to make sure that my shoulder and my elbow are in line, my ear, shoulder, hip are in line. As a beginner, we are simply going to stack the knees and move them back. So once again, knee, hip, shoulder, ear all stay in line. From there, I'm simply going to lift up and hold. Notice I'm not flat, but there's a little concavity or a little bridge, making sure that I'm contracting all these muscles on the bottom side. Same as the others, you'll hold it for 2 minutes until you can slowly work your way up to 5. Once you've reached 2 minutes, you're then free to try the advanced version, which simply means straightening the legs and coming up into that same bridge. Same rules, somewhere between 2 to 5 minutes. If that's easy for you, bring up an arm and then bring up a leg, and same thing, 2 to 5 minutes. Make sure that you do each side to avoid any asymmetries. Our next exercise is prone Superman. I'm going to come down, forehead on the ground, arms at about a 45-degree angle. From there, we've got a few options. If you're a beginner, you're simply going to lift your legs and hold. Again, start wherever you are and work until you can do it for 2 minutes. Once that's doable for you, you do the opposite. Legs relax, and we lift and hold the upper body. Same thing, somewhere between 2 and 5 minutes. Once you can accomplish both of those, we simply put it together, and I come up. I'm squeezing my glutes, neutral chin with a little tuck, arms reaching as high as they go, legs reaching as high as they go. Same rules, I'm going to hold it for a minimum of 2 minutes, working my way up to 5 minutes. Our last exercise to check your grip strength or your systemic strength is the dead hang. I'm going to find a pull-up bar. I'm simply going to grab on. For a beginner, if you're unable to support your full body weight, you'll simply stand on a block, bend your knees, and let your body hang as you hold. Like every other exercise in our endurance series, the minimum hold for general fitness standards is 2 minutes. Athletic standard, 5 minutes. If that's easy for you, we simply remove the block and let your feet come all the way off the ground, and we simply hang. Again, 2 to 5 minutes. If you're more advanced and that's easy for you, from there, we're simply gonna hold on with one arm, release the other arm, and let your body hang. These, generally we work 30 seconds to 60 seconds. Anytime you need, make sure you switch to the other side. We wanna make sure that we don't have asymmetries in our body. That is why we do both sides. Hopefully this has provided you with a base understanding of how we maybe aren't as strong as we think we are once we hit our 40s and beyond. And oftentimes that's largely due to a lack of muscular endurance and joint integrity. I gave you 5 exercises and the athletic standards and general fitness standards to build your strength up to surpass anything you could have done even back in your 20s. As a general reminder, we'll try to add 10 to 20% to our effort every 2 to 3 weeks. And when should you expect results? Generally speaking, the first 4 weeks are largely neural gains, meaning your body is figuring out the coordination of the exercise. The next 5 to 8-ish weeks is when we tend to get the muscular gains where our muscles get bigger and stronger. And then at roughly 8 to 12 weeks is when we get the tendon and the connective tissue strength. So start slow, slowly add endurance, meaning adding time to it. And then lastly, plan for 8 to 12 weeks to get the full benefits of this routine. All right, feel free to subscribe and leave a comment if you have any questions.